Hello, welcome to SuperCoach Edge for the round 15 review and round 16 preview. Well, we made it. We weathered the storm and have made it out the other side. The buys are over and it's all smooth sailing from here. Well, we can hope, at least. As always, there were some villains and some saviors. And there was one for me, a savior. It was actually a couple. One by the name of MJ, not Michael Jackson. MJ. He knows who he is. And also Seamus. Our favorite Seamus. We were on the bandwagon before everyone else, just through the AFL Select card collecting that we're into. Even though we laughed at we're like, who's bloke Seamus? Now we know who he is. He's the savior. But Liam, how did you pull up? How'd you go?
Yeah, not bad. Pretty happy, if you could say that. My team definitely had those heroes and the villains, both. The highs of Errol with his 164 and the lows of
glorious.
Marek 16 and Chesser 11.
Oh,
does it even count as having 18 if you have scores like that?
Well, I'm discounting, like we'll go into our teams in a moment, of course, but I'm actually discounting Marek in my team. And even though I had 17, I'm calling it that I've had 16 because Marek 16 just doesn't count, surely. Yeah. But I did have to laugh as well that when it was the Sunday teams were announced and Chesser was announced as a sub and you were like, yes. What did you say? He's gonna end up scoring a negative. Yeah,
I was like, watch him score like -3 or something. Like,
oh, it was close enough to it. You went far off.
11. Pretty good. Just like his highest score, considering he was the sub still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think he came on at a different. At a decent time of the game as well.
Came in at like halftime, I think, just before halftime or just after or something.
Yeah. Well, I can't complain though. Like Marek, poor bloke. Like baptism of fire.
Starved
like imagine opportunity starved of like just any side of the footy. Like that's no man's land being camped in West Coast forward line. Gee whiz, what a baptism of fire for the poor bloke in his second game. But oh well. But I do feel as though we deserve a T-shirt that says "I survived the buys" in the front. Like that'd be maybe that's something we'll produce in the line of merch for next season. Perhaps might be quite popular. But of course, if you're not following us on socials where we post the latest news, post-match SuperCoach scores, and the odd meme or two, you can do so via on Twitter at SuperCoach_Edge, at DamoJ88. You can find Liam at LiamEvans_95 on Facebook, Insta, and TikTok. Just search SuperCoach Edge and you'll find us there. Well, Liam, let's jump straight into it by kicking things off with our usual recap in the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes, in the good, the bad, and the ugly, we roll through some of the more notable and the more forgettable performances across the round. And we touch on how our own teams performed in our own head-to-head rivalry. As we wrestle for ultimate... I love how I say this every time. We wrestle for ultimate supremacy. It's not much of a wrestle going on. It's more of a, like, punching bag situation.
Punching bag. Just getting pummeled.
Yeah, pretty much with no arms and no legs to protect myself.
You're one of like those dummies. Yeah. One of those dummies, those karate dummies with just the head and the torso.
I feel like at this stage though, I'm like, Monty Python when there's that night and he's just like...
He gets his limbs chopped off?
Tis but a scratch.
Oh, had enough, eh? Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! It's just a flesh wound.
That's me right now. I'm just like, keep coming up. You've got no arms, I've got no legs. But I'm like, I'll bite you to death.
You're going to kick me? Yeah, you're just a torso and a head now. I think you were a torso and a head long ago.
Yeah.
But to your credit, you're still going. You're still going strong.
Yeah.
Well, no, I won't let that happen. Because then we won't have the fun going here on out. So we're going to keep you alive. Let's start off with the good, of course. And we can't look any further than our boy. Well, your boy, Liam. Errol Goulden. We called it last week. It was bound to happen. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I reckon, where he had the downer game. And it was reminiscent of earlier in the season when he had a down game. Some people were trading him out. Yeah. Why? we called it then. We said he's going to bounce back. And what happened? He bounced back again, not just the previous week, but he went absolutely bananas this week. So he had 32 disposals, 3 goals, 5 tackles, and 164 SuperCoach points. And he led the way, albeit against poor opposition, of course, but can't discount that. Like you can only, dish out it up against the opposition that say you're facing on the given week. So, I mean, what a week to pull it through, really. In the bye week of all things, where we just needed him to pull through, and he did. So happy with that. Thank you, Errol.
Thank you, Errol. Thank you.
What a gun.
Onto the bad. Jared Witts. It was actually a bit of a weird round for, I think, the bad. There wasn't too many without. I don't want to be harsh and put in rookies. Like I always feel bad putting in like a first year player. So I try and avoid them in this section. So you know what, Witts, you're not a first year player. You're like 100 years old.
Yep,
you can take it. You're big enough. So he dropped his lowest score for the season as well with an 83. And that is not what you want from your R2, especially in a week where so many people were struggling to field 16 or 17. I'll give him a pass, though. I think that's why he sits in the bad. We'll give him a pass. Hawthorn are tough oppositions for rucks to score against. So hopefully he can bounce back this week for any owners. But yeah, poor score. Not good. Not good you don't want any bad scores in a bye week.
Yeah. Of all things, like especially primos, like I reckon I was pretty lucky in terms of the primos.
Yeah, likewise.
Actually scored pretty well. Even guys like Seamus and MJ, as I said at the start of the show, that they pulled through. But yeah, with the primos, like it's to be expected. Like, come on, pull your weight. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Paul will be tough. Anyway, let's move on and round it out with the ugly, of course. And it is probably one from left field, but one that is warranted. And a lot of people listening and tuning in right now will be in agreement, especially those owners of Clary. Yeah. So D's Medicos, you are in the ugly. Fair income. This has been a long time coming, I think, but this is beyond a joke now. But the bigger joke is remembering back to when it was first reported that he had the hamstring complaint and he actually trained that following week. But not only that, remember he actually played out the remainder of that match with the reported hamstring niggle. And now, fast forward 6 weeks later, and he's been out for that duration. Although I must admit, a portion of that was due to the infected blister, if you want to call it that. But the Medico's lack of transparency is
as opposed to what? What else?
I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it now. Hold on. But the Medico's lack of transparency is an absolute shitstorm. And I do say, infected blister because I'm referring to those rumors that we've been seeing circulating on socials, where people are suggesting that Clary might be up to some mischief, which just isn't fair on poor Clary. But you've got to, again, if I was Clary, I'd be so pissed off with the Medicos because it's kind of like it's off the back of your lack of transparency that people are making up shit because it seems unbelievable at this stage now that his hammy is that bad when it was reported initially that he might not even miss a week originally, and now it's 6 weeks on.
To play out the game as well. Yeah. And then train. He's trained multiple times.
Yeah.
Over this period. I don't know. It's all just a bit weird. It's all a bit weird.
Yeah.
Not that I've suggested the rumors are true, but it's bizarre. It's honestly bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah.
A 1 week hamstring has really turned into a 6 weeker.
But we're not going to delve into these rumors, but if you don't know what we're referring to, just have a look on Twitter. You'll see it. It's talking about off-field antics. Virtually, we'll just say that. Which the pink sweaty pig, he's not into that. He's not into that. He's just into getting down and dirty in the mud.
His body is his temple.
Exactly. He's a clean skin. And I can say it firsthand because when I'm chomping down on the hiney and extracting the pig juice, it's as clean and pure
as
organic.
It's organic. It
is
free
organic.
Range. It's a free range pig.
And as we always free range pig.
Grass
fed with the pulp, goes down a treat as you're about to take a nice sip of that warm glass of pig juice that you're having right now, otherwise known as Pepsi Max. Yes, hopefully the pink sweaty pig can be gracing our sides once again very soon.
Talking about Pepsi Max, do you know who's a purveyor of Pepsi Max? Our boy. He should be a sponsor of this show. He's be a mascot.
Yeah, absolutely. Wilmot.
Yeah.
Good old Wilmot. Yeah, he I had no idea
of Pepsi Max. I loved it.
Yeah, because he was interviewed on AFL 360 and Robbo was all about it. He was like a pig in shit. He was like he's uncovered like gold. He was like, look what I've got here. And he like holds up his own can of Pepsi Max. And then Wilmot, like an excited little kid's like, oh my God, wait here. And just like jumps out mid-interview to go and get a can out of the fridge. It was a classic. It was really good. But I was tipping, we were both tipping our caps at him. Like, yeah, I have to get in touch with him because that is the official drink of SuperCoach Edge.
Yep.
The official, unofficial drink, because they don't sponsor us, as you probably should. Pepsi Max, we're looking for a sponsor. We'll take it. And we'll stop referring to any pig juice. But if you do release a line of pig juice, gee whiz.
Look at this
imagine
guy.
the royalties. Imagine the royalties from that. But yeah, SuperCoach with VR. Supports that.
I was like, anyway, this is not a big tangent, but yes.
Yeah, it has, absolutely. But SuperCoach with DR has been calling him the Pepsi Max King. And I've been like, I don't understand. Like, is it Max King? Pepsi? Does he like Pepsi? And I didn't even read into the fact that it was Pepsi Max. But now it makes complete sense. But anyway, that is that. Enough with a tangent. Let's get into quickly how our sides performed on the weekend. And I ended up scoring 1,921. And ranking-wise, I clawed on. I held on, Liam. And I was hoping that I would have kept, and we were discussing over the weekend, of course. And I was saying that hopefully I could hold within the top 1,500. And I did. So I ended up, I slid down 399 spots to now sit 1,472 rank overall. So not too bad considering that. So happy enough. But I guess both of our collective goals were to come out of the buys in better shape than what we went into them with. And for my own team, it looks like I achieved that, albeit slightly. So I'm now ranked 241 spots better off. So it counts. It counts for something. Even if you're one spot better than what you were going into the buys, it's a positive. So if you sort of look at the buys as a whole, that will give you a bit more perspective, I think. As we always say, going to the buys, like don't look at each individual week, because if you were going to look at like the weekend, for example, I know some teams scored like 1,500, 1,600, and it can get you down. But hopefully you performed well over the 4 weeks in total. But as for the score this individual week, I'm pretty happy considering I virtually had to field, like I mentioned earlier, 16 players, but I am discounting, of course, Marek's score of 16. So I did have 17, but I'm going to say that it was 16 off the back of that. But special mention goes to Seamus Mitchell and Matt Johnson, both of whom came out clutch, scoring a 99 and 98 to help prop up my week. A couple of boom rookies, which was very, very nice on a bye week. In terms of trades, with my original trade in target in Clary being out yet again, and of course, I must mention that he's been ruled out again this coming weekend as well, as a bit of a tidbit there, which was released a couple of hours ago. But off the back of that, I could no longer hold Sicily. I was looking to potentially hold him, as we discussed in last week's episode, as it would have meant I fielded 16, which would have then gone down to 15, discounting Marek's score. So I ended up biting the bullet and traded him out for the big tractor in Petrarca, who delivered the goods as my eventual VC. I whacked on him first up with a 121. My other trade was forward to Marek, which provided me with 200k in the kit to help my next primo targets. So hopefully, I think I've got 2 upgrades to go. So hopefully I can just go directly to potentially bypassing Oliver, which we will discuss in a moment as the hot topic, the talking point of this week, to maybe go for Sicily back again with the excess cash plus Briggs. So we'll see how we go there. But Liam, how did you go on the weekend?
I scored 1,861, which saw me fall down the ranking slightly, 421 spots to sit 7,370 overall. So I guess now that, as we said, the buys behind us, we can do a bit of a post-mortem and look at how I fared. I entered the buys ranked 7,432nd. So, I've basically held my spot. Slight climb.
You've climbed, yeah. What, 62 spots? So that's not too bad.
Yeah, I'll accept it. Yeah,
good.
If it wasn't, I guess, for that first week where I dropped almost 4K spots, it may have come out a little bit further ahead. I did have one player down that week.
Yeah.
I think I just had some underperformers as well. But yeah, happy enough that I've sort of at least maintained my ranking over the 4 weeks. But I do want to say, considering that 10 weeks, I looked this up, 10 weeks ago, I was ranked 46 in the 46,000s. So to come into 7, sit within 7 the top 7.5k. I'm happy with that.
Jeez, you've done really well. Like that's
I've clawed it back.
I was
Got it back a bit.
literally half of that rank. I was 20 or almost 23,969.
Yeah.
So geez, you've done better than me, I reckon. Like to claw back as well as you have.
Let's
Pretty
see
good.
if I can keep going. I'm hoping I can.
Yep.
I think aim now is top 5k.
Oh yeah, I reckon that's achievable. I reckon
If
go
I can
higher
get
than
top
that.
5k.
Top 1K.
Okay. All
You
right.
can do it.
If I
Let's
keep, how many
manifest it.
weeks are left?
8 weeks? 8?
Yeah,
9
right.
weeks?
8 weeks.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
We
do
can
it.
do that.
Let's do it.
Easy.
Anyway, now let's have a look at this week particularly. I did manage to field 18, though Marek 16, Chess is 11, and Robertson's 33. Could argue I was
Yeah.
down 3 players, but
Forgot about Robertson. Yeah.
we'll accept that. We'll accept that. I mean, when you got Goulden scoring 164, it kind of helps.
Mm.
Other than that, it was actually pretty positive. 10 of my 18 managed to ton up, with another 3 of them in the 90s. So pretty happy with how the team went overall. As I mentioned on last week's episode, I brought in the Riddler, was ready to be hurt again, and he didn't hurt me. It's nice. I brought in Decamp finally after
Yes.
talking about him all preseason, and I brought in Marek at the expense of Sicily, Ford, and Chin Cotter. So now I've got 2 spots left to fill, a D6 and an M8, and with a 500,000 in the kitty, I am very ready to go shopping.
Go there into the shopping plaza and just splurge.
Yeah, could be like, I want 1 Dawson and 1. I don't know. I actually don't know what else I want yet, so I'll have to come
1
back to you on that.
Dawson. I would have had 1 Clary, but maybe it might be
Yeah,
defective, so I
that was
might have to
actually
come
my
back with a
plan.
receipt.
It was
And
Dawson and Clary.
yeah. Oh well, it's going to be defective. Keep the receipt. Yeah, otherwise it's you want something brand new out of the box. I reckon Dawson, especially off the back of that big game.
Dawson was on the list. I don't know. Maybe we can talk about some options and
yes,
I'll think
maybe.
about it.
Let's do that. Well, let's round it out by having a look at our head-to-head.
Yes.
Even though it's aptly named head-to-head, it's maybe head-to-head and torso because you got no limbs, Liam, as you spoke of before. So I went ahead, 12 wins now. Yeah, head in a jar, yeah. Is that a Futurama? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm 12 wins, you're 3. And the differential now is 568. But you made some ground a little bit. You got a win across the buys, is that right? Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I
last
got
week.
1 win, I think.
Well, let's round it out here by talking about the hot pie buy challenge, as it's aptly named, which we announced a few weeks ago, which we were, I guess, putting as a bit of a bow on the buy period itself across the 4 buy weeks, with the lowest scorer across all of them awarded with the honor of smashing down not just any hot pie, but the spiciest of hot pies. So we do, of course, have where's it from? It's a bakery in
Seymour. What's it called?
I forget the name of it.
Gaffney Pies or Gaffney Bakehouse or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they want to sling us a sponsorship as well, considering
we'll
we'll
get
be
your name
sampling,
right if you do.
we might get sponsored by a completely different bakery that shares that incorrect name, perhaps. But I came out victorious with a 228-point differential between us in the end. So yeah, is what it is. I reckon just looking at these bye weeks here. So week 3, you gained 73 points on me, but apart from that, it wasn't too bad. 206 was week 1. I reckon that killed you. Yeah. That really killed you. So that was the nail in the coffin was the first week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but we'll say that I guess for the enjoyment, Liam, of the people who tune in to the kind folk that tune in either through the podcast or watch us on vodcast.
I feel like you need to watch it. I don't think you need to listen to me eating a pie.
Exactly. So this is catered for those people that are tuning in with their eyes. So it's
although if you're really into that like AMSR stuff, like maybe I can just eat it. Oh, no. Sorry, I hate hearing people eat. So just eat it next to the microphone for you all.
It's like it's gonna make it like really sensual.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're going to be like smushing your feet into the pie and stuff. It's going to be like really freaky. But for those
It's a
people
whole
tuning
new
in,
level of sponsorship for us.
well, gee whiz,
Uh,
yeah, Sexyland or something might jump on board. Some weird kink. We're not gonna kink shame people here, but for those people tuning in, we're gonna call it maybe the segment that's for your eyes only, which makes it seem a little bit explicit as well. But no, it's not explicit. No, it's not ASMR unless you want us to cater it that way. But maybe for those people tuning in, let us know either via Twitter or in the comment section below on YouTube here if you'd like to see Liam truly suffer at the hands of the pie. Now we're at a little bit of a conjecture here. We don't know how hot this pie is. We've heard numerous, I guess, reports, yeah, that maybe it's super hot. But your tolerance to heat is probably next level. So
I'm hoping I can survive this.
Yeah, but let us
I'm
know in the
looking forward
comments.
to it. So this is not as much punishment as we all think it is.
Yeah, exactly. You might just be sitting there enjoying it, and we're all just like, oh, okay, where's the punishment? Yes, might have to do a follow-up. Or maybe we can call it the hot pie by challenge. And if you don't get like overloaded by the heat, maybe we'll just like light a candle underneath you. You have to sit and you have to just hover above a hot candle or something. I don't know. And then it can be the hot seat challenge.
Yeah.
But let us know if you want us to record this, film it, pre-recorded, of course, because in case it is super hot, won't be able to complete the podcast. You'd just be sweating up a treat.
Also, I feel like I'm going to have to go heat up. Like it's going to be like that whole. Did you hear about during the Sicily tribunal that one of the tribunal members were like, "Oh, can you just wait? I've got to go check the oven." Like just mid hearing. Yeah, he was just like, "Oh, there's something in the oven," and just got up and left.
That just sums up. I reckon we're more professional than what the tribunal is. Like, what a setup, what an operation. But anyway, yeah, if we get enough interest from Yukon folk, if you're keen to see Liam suffer, let us know, because we can easily capture this glorious moment for all of the SuperCoach Edge community to enjoy.
Yes.
So let us know with that. But Liam, now is time for us to delve into what's left on the shelves, I guess, in The Price is Right.
Show me the money. Oh! Does that make you feel good just to say that? What you gonna do, Jerry? Show me the money!
Yes, for those tuning in for the first time, The Price is Right is where we discuss the potential trades, some trade targets from week to week, or whether a specific player under question should even be traded at all. And I'm ready to go window shopping, David, because not even window shopping. I've got my cash, got my credit card.
Yep.
It's the opposite of maxed out. It's I don't know what the opposite of is. It's minned out. And I'm ready to spend.
Ready to spend, yeah. It's like you've just come into like an inheritance.
Yeah.
Of courtesy of Clary, which is virtually what it is. And Sicily as well.
These two guys.
Yeah. So quite the inheritance to inherit anyway, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I've got 200K in the bank as well, so I'm willing we'll go down the shops together and we'll just splurge, max out the credit card, the SuperCoach credit card, and spend to our heart's content. But firstly, let's delve into those players that if you're in need of some cash, who should you be getting rid of potentially? So let's jump into it with the first category of going, gone. And first up, we have Bailey Humphrey as a mid forward, priced at 394.4K, averaging a 63.3 with a break even of 120. And Humphrey B. Bear, he's come crashing down with a score of 34 on the weekend, seeing his price drop by 12.7K. And it really came off the back of a reduction in CBAs, falling from 62% in round 11 to 41% in round 12, and then to just 7% against the Blues and 0% on the weekend. So he's literally just going
down exponentially.
Down. And I reckon it's due to like being a first year player. He's only played a handful of games. Yeah. Surely his fitness is he's hitting the wall. Played a majority of time up forward as well on the weekend, which I thought traditionally that was going to be the role that he would have played from the outset.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, in my eyes, has regressed to the mean, really, even though that's kind of the first time that he's hit these low points. But I mean, for those owners that have had him, I hope you've enjoyed the cash wave and you've rode it well. But I think, just without that opportunity in the midfield, his scoring potential has really dried up. and it is going to continue, I think, unless he's been, I guess given a week off, come back fresh. But nonetheless, move him on. I think he's made you 209.6K. So banks that cash. Come shopping with Liam and I, and we'll be just spending it up a treat.
Yep, I agree. Come join us.
Join us
at the SuperCoach Mall, buying everything.
Must go.
Yep. Grand sale.
Oh no! Like you return.
Hey, Franco.
Yeah, we might have to bring him back actually. For those people that are tuning in for the first time this season or for the first episode, we're referencing we used to have a soundbite with Franco Cozzo. He used to introduce this segment. So we might bring him back maybe. It's a bit of fun. We've got a bit more time on our hands from here on out, from week to week, considering there's going to be less and less players to talk about. So would it be, I guess, we might have to shop at Franco Cozzo's place and look for those bargains.
Yeah. He's been
modernissimo.
Yeah. It's been missing. Hasn't.
Yeah.
Didn't pay the check. Didn't pay the check for the sponsorship. So we've had to,
Yeah, he's gone missing. Yeah, he's gone missing. Maybe he's a supplier to Clary. Don't know what he's supplying, but who knows? Anyway.
Moving on. Josh Weddle, next option to punt out of your side, I guess. Defender eligible, 345.5K, averaging 67.8 with a break even of 81. Now, he has his second lowest score of the season this weekend, which means that he has basically halted his cash gen as his break even is up to 81. And that's a score that he has only surpassed twice this season. So tough one for him. Can cash him in this week for a nice little profit of 214.7K and obviously net yourself a genuine primo or a genuine keeper. However, on the other hand, you could hold him. His job security should be decent enough as cover for your D7 for the rest of the he scores well enough most of the time, but
yeah,
I guess it was a rough game on the weekend for the Hawks against the Suns. Just really took over.
Yep, I think their key tools like King and what's his name? I was going to call him Lernberger. Lukosius starts with the same letter, but completely different player. You know all about Lernberger, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
As a Dons man. But yeah, it was tough going. I think he played a bit more key position defensive lockdown type game. So definitely think about moving him on. Use him as a bit of a stepping stone to a genuine keeper. But let's move on the chopping block. And first up, we have an unfortunate name here for those owners. It is Jeremy Cameron. He's priced at 395.2K, averaging an 87.6 with a break even of a whopping 178. And for those that jumped on Jezza, this is probably a perfect opportunity to jump back off, as unfortunate as it is, after he scored a -3 on the weekend after being knocked out by his teammate. Cameron's break even has shot straight up to that 178, and he will miss at least this week. He's going to drop in price as well. And as a key position forward, his scoring just isn't stable enough to be worthy of a selection. And having said that, I'm surprised that a few people actually brought him in. I know the Skodfather did. But if you bring him in as someone like off the bench as a bit of an F9 type option, F9, F7, F8 type option.
Could be a good option in a few weeks.
Absolutely, because he could drop below 300K.
170. Sorry, what is it? 178 is his break even. If he goes at his 50 average, what's SuperCoach got him projected? SuperCoach has got him projected to be sub 300 in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It makes you think as well that even though we've got him here as it going sort of on the chopping block, like it's not guaranteed, but I think you could potentially, you've kind of like shot yourself in the foot, I reckon, just because he's lost 43.6K. Is it worth, I guess, investing in the bank to then upgrade him or sideways trade him? If you can sideways trade him, do you go for someone like a Himmelberg? Do you go for you'd have to almost go for that, or like a Ben Keys maybe?
Yeah.
Because he's at that lower price point now where you're dipping too much into your bank that might compromise upgrades elsewhere if you're still yet to upgrade the rest of your team. But nonetheless, I think, yeah, if you're looking to offload him, there are a couple of options there to look at. But yeah, maybe an opportunity to trade him out whilst he still has value, which is funny enough to say. But as we said, he could be priced lower than 300K and could drop another 95K over the next couple of weeks.
He's in 14% of teams.
14.
Yeah.
Gee whiz. Those 14% obviously don't listen into to our podcast or watch our vodcast.
Wild.
Because as we've said all along, do not prioritize key position forwards, no matter how good they are. I know we went on a tear early in the season, and I'm hoping that a vast majority of those owners came early in the season. But even
quite
then,
a lot came then.
Even then, key position forwards, as you can see now, I mean, discounting the injury game, of course, but he went on after the tear of games that he went on early in the season, he dropped off dramatically. And yeah, hadn't scored from round 7 to round 11. He hadn't scored a ton at all. So yeah, it's too much variance in a key position forwards game. So as we say, that's part of the reason why we suggest that they should be brought in as a bit of an F7, because then if they have those, with the high variance, high standard deviation in their scores for those games that they go bananas in, at least you can sort of, hedge your bets off the bench and loop your score on off the bench.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unfortunate though, nonetheless.
Agreed. Let's move on to the next guy on the list, and it is Matty Johnson, mid-eligible, 307.6K, averaging 52.9 with a break-even of 47. Now, he finds himself in this section of On the Chopping Block purely based on his cash gen and as a stepping stone. He's done his job, so you can send him to pasture, bring in a genuine keeper or a primo if you can afford it. Equally, though, he has shown he's capable of scoring 90 plus, having done so twice in the last 3 games. So could be handy cover on the bench, as an M9, M10 even if you've got a Wardlaw as well. The problem, I guess, there is that he does have the propensity to drop a low score. We've seen 30s even with, full game time. He's probably not quite at the point where he's sort of cemented his spot in the best 22, I want to say. Like, I feel like he's on the outer. Like, he's probably not the first dropped, but if there's a few poor games, he could be on the outer and get dropped.
Like surplus to requirements.
Yeah.
Like best 18. Like maybe he's on the cusp of like being in the 22, but not best 18.
Yeah. Because looking at his CBAs, he had 11 on the weekend, which was a drop again from his 17 last round and his 42 in round 13. So again, the role isn't necessarily looking super strong for him.
Yeah. He actually was just looking at his heat map. I think he played along, he kind of was around the ground, but maybe as a center, maybe along the wing, drifted, forward and back really. So maybe he wasn't there for the stoppages, obviously, in the engine room, but maybe when the ball was slinging from back and forth, they were kind of going through him through the middle. But yeah, he's such a good, isn't he? Just in terms of points per minute, he's really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was 1.12 on the week. Actually, sorry, I'm just looking at DFS here, and it's gone through for fantasy. But yeah, he's 1.12 points per minute for SuperCoach on the weekend. And he's shown that previously as well. Round 13, 1.19. So he doesn't need, he's a bit of a tackler as well. So
yeah. Yeah. So it could be one to hold. I think it depends on your structure and who else you've got. There might be players like if you've got a Wardlaw, you could argue that he's got stronger jump security, so you can probably rely on him. Use Johnson as a trade out option. Again, you might want to trade out Weddle instead because I don't know, you've got Mitchell that can cover, and then you can keep Johnson. I think it really comes down to your own structures, but one to consider for that option.
I like it. I'm personally trying to keep him, I think, a season-long cover. And hopefully, now that he's shown a couple of these games now where he can score quite well without the need for having CBAs, might be one for a bit of nice cover, but maybe even potentially as a loophole option off the bench, which would be very interesting considering with a team full of primos in the midfield, then have to work out who you bench.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the next category of get them in. And topping this list is the awesome Dawson, Jordan Dawson. He's a defender midfielder priced at 582.1k, averaging a 117.6 with a break even of 92. And he went absolutely bang on the weekend to show that he still has a ceiling on with a score of 149, posting his biggest score since round 7. And it's been a long time coming because I think round 8 was when I brought him in. So it's been a long wait for me. But geez, it was good. It was juicy. And coincidentally, that game was against the Pies as well. So Collingwood, thank you so much. I tip the cap to you, fine folk there, because you've brought him back into form again. And he's currently the second best defender and 6th best scoring midfielder. So if you haven't got him in your side now's probably the time to jump on. He's got North this weekend as well, just as a cherry on top, who he averages a 121.6 against with a lower score of 99. So, gee whiz, the stars are aligning.
Juice.
Everything's coming up, Millhouse, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Juice with the pulp for Dawson.
There's a lot of references there.
I know a lot. Just have to round them all out. Just have to tick the list.
Yeah, get him in. And imagine what he could have scored if he got that late free kick and a shot goal and kicked it.
I could not believe it.
But
he had like a blood nose. He got up and he was like showing the umpire, like, mate, I copped a whack in the face.
Yeah.
This isn't jam from a hot jam donut that I just consumed on field. It's a blood nose. Oh God.
Oh, bless. Cracking game. He's in my sights. He's definitely coming into my side. I just don't know who he's coming in with.
Okay. Coming in with, hand in hand.
Got someone else. I've got enough money for 2 primos.
Oh, geez. I told you this is your time. The buys are your time to shine, but it was at the back end of the buys. Now you're just going to bit of a lick the sail and wet sail. The way you come.
Into the top 5K.
500.
Moving on to the next guy on the list, and it is Lukey Ryan, defender eligible for Freo, 521.1k, averaging 101.4 with a break even of 52. And I have to say, this surprised me. Like his average and what I'm just about to say, he is currently the 3rd ranked defender in SuperCoach for the season.
I don't believe it.
When I saw that, I almost fell off my chair. Seriously. Yeah. He's got some interesting variability in his scoring. He has highs of the 171 and lows of 83. So I suppose when you look at that, an average of 101.4 probably isn't too surprising.
Yeah.
It does mean, though, that he has a very stable floor, considering he does have lows of 83. His 5 scores sub 100 read 83, 84, 85, 91, and 93. So actually, it's not too bad. I'm talking myself into him, and I don't want to.
Yeah, don't do it to me.
At his price, I think it's pretty good value, especially considering that his average is, 101.4, and especially considering that the number 2 defender, which is Jordan Dawson, comes in at over 60k more, and the number 1 defender in day cost is over 86k more. So, taking that into consideration, he's coming in at a pretty decent price for your your D3 essentially. I think, though, that if you're considering him or Dawson, pay up for Dawson. One, because he's D2 already, but he comes with the DPP flex. I think sometimes you need to just spend the money.
You need to go for as I call it, the top shelf. You always got to reach for the top shelf, the cream of the crop, as Macho Man Randy Savage says, as he's pulling little bits of creamer out of his pockets and every which way. But the one thing with Ryan, and I knew it was going to happen on the weekend, facing your mob and the Dons, who concede quite a few points to opposition defenders, especially those taking kick-ins like Ryan. So again, I'd like to go through and see those games where he scored bananas, a bunch of bananas. So I guess like round 1 against St Kilda, they were conceding quite a few points. I don't know if they still are, but they were early in the season. Like they were the number 1 team conceding the most points to opposition defenders. 171, Essendon 143, So I reckon he's kind of like a flat track bully. I reckon he just matchup exploitations.
I don't know what their run home is.
Actually not too bad because they face, they got a game against West Coast. So there we go. It's an easy one.
Well, you could also argue that that's not a good
actually, yeah, because the ball's not going to be down
because
in defense.
they probably never get it down there.
Yeah. We got Hawthorn in the last round. First up, we got the Dogs on the weekend, then Carlton, Collingwood, Sydney, Geelong, Brisbane, West Coast, Port, Hawthorn. But I'm not so much of a fan of him just because if you subtract those games or you kind of take into account that they were like, I mean, as we said with Marek and whatever, like, and sorry, not with Marek, with Goulden, like, you know, you can only perform against the sides that you're facing on any given week. But I'd like to go through and look at those teams that he's facing and see if there's any other, you know, matchup exploitations that he could have that are favorable. Because outside of that, his scoring is okay, but they're not the heights of like a Jordan Dawson.
No, definitely not.
Just because he's like the ceiling of Dawson has happened more regularly, 173, 152, 150, 122, 120, 149, and his lowest scores. His lowest score all year was 78 for Dawson, 89, 92, 95. So he's got a higher floor and a higher ceiling. So I'd be prepared to pay that extra dollar.
Yeah, definitely.
Dollar or 70K or whatever it was, in order to bring in Dawson, like you mentioned.
So I'm just looking at teams he's played already this season. Plays Sydney again, so he plays Western Bulldogs, who hasn't played yet, Carlton, who hasn't played yet, Collingwood, who hasn't played yet. That's the next 3 weeks. Then he plays Sydney in round 19. He scored 85 against them earlier in the year. Then he plays Geelong, who he scored 84 against earlier in the year.
Yep, don't match
then
up
he plays
well. So
Brisbane.
just quickly, Sydney and Geelong don't concede many points to defenders.
Yeah. Brisbane 127. He's played against earlier this year. West Coast.
Brisbane don't concede points either.
Yeah. West Coast 105 earlier this year.
West Coast. Yeah, designated kickers they don't, but general defenders like tall. Depends how he plays. If he's playing as a lockdown defender, maybe.
Yeah. Port, he hasn't played yet, and then Hawthorn, he scored 109 against earlier this year.
Yeah, Hawthorn don't concede too many points, and Port Adelaide do a little bit, not much though.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, something to look into. That's the next layer of analysis that we go into here, Liam. That's SuperCoach Edge. But let's move on to the next candidate, and it is Liba. It is Tom Liberatore. He's priced at 615.6K, averaging a 117.7 with a break even of 102. And despite being 30 plus, Liba just isn't slowing down. He's currently ranked as the 11th best midfielder and has dropped below 100 in score just twice this season with an 80 and 87. He isn't quite a value option at that current price point, but sitting in 9% of teams currently means he's a relatively unique pick, which could help you in the rankings. He's the second for CBAs of the mids at the Dogs, which should remain pretty consistent. The only question, though, is whether he slows down as the season progresses.
Just goes against that theory. Like, you shouldn't really pick older players.
Yeah.
Like, there's normally a correlation that their scoring decreases, obviously, as they sort of reach 30.
Yeah.
And go over 30. So he could be the one that joins, that holds hands with Dawson and comes into my team this week.
Oh, I did I did sense a bit of a glint in the eye there when I mentioned Liba as a bit of a BT.
One to think about.
Because this is his best averaging year in his career thus far. Like his best one prior to that was 2014, where he scored where it averaged a 110. So he's in fine fiddle, the old Liba.
And he's just not, like, looking at his recent scores, like the 80 was in round 11 and the 87 was back in round 2. Every other score has been above 100. And his fourth lowest score was 101. His fifth lowest score was 115. So he's got a pretty good ceiling. Like he's tending to hit his ceiling a little bit harder than a lot of other players, which is nice to see.
Yep, don't mind it. And as a pod as well. Pretty good.
One to consider.
Mm.
Now, moving on to the next guy, another midfielder. Your boy, Damon. Sammy Walsh is obviously a midfielder, 514.4K. He is averaging 104.4 for the season with a break-even of 96. Now, as an owner, this surprised me a little bit because I feel like I'm constantly shaking my head when I see his scores. But of his 10 games this season, he has turned up in all but 3 with his below 100 scores reading 93, 92, and 72. Just like one of those things that I feel like as an owner, I just feel like I always remember him going 90 every week, but apparently not. Apparently not.
As do I.
Haven't really seen that big ceiling from him with his best scores being 130, 117, 117, and 108. But we do know that he is value at his price and is perfect for an M7 or M8 option at this stage of the season. A pretty consistent performer who may have hit his straps after the bye. May hit his straps after the bye because he did score that 108 the week before. So one to consider for the run home, especially considering he screams value, as he comes in 96.5K cheaper in his price tag compared to what he started the season at. So
he's another guy as well that I think I brought in literally at the start of his downturn in form. Like he'd scored a few tons early in the season, brought him in, thought, oh yeah, safe scoring, hasn't yet hit his ceiling. But that's kind of the one frustrating thing is obviously that he's people are going to get him at a very, very big discount compared to what I got him at.
Yeah.
But the key there is he hasn't yet shown his ceiling. So I think the upside that he presents, especially if Carlton can turn around their form somewhat, obviously did in the week prior, albeit against the Suns, but plays Hawthorn this weekend as well. Who knows? Might be a nice little springboard to flashing that high ceiling scoring.
Coming off the bye though, it's only concern.
Yeah.
The curse that is the bye this week.
The buys, yeah, it's true. Curse
the this year. Yeah, no, I don't mind him. I think him at that price is great value and a very consistent scorer.
Yep, exactly. As you said, for that M7, M8 spot, you can't do much worse than that, I think.
Yeah.
Especially at that price point. But let's move on to the next guy, and it is Zachary Butters. That's me. As a midfielder forward, priced at 614.4K, averaging a 110.4 with a break-even of 138. And since round 5, Butters hasn't dropped below a score of 90, notching up 7 tons on the way, including highs of 184, 146, and 139. And his high break-even means he could wait another week, though he did manage a score of 125 against the Dons earlier this season. So he could definitely go large yet again, potentially surpass that break-even.
Yep. Could be in for a big one. I'd almost wait a week. I just don't think you're going to lose. There's not much downside to waiting.
Yeah.
If he goes absolutely bonkers, like, you can't predict that.
Yeah. Unless the player that you're trading out for him has a high break even that may drop in price.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe that's like the only reason why you'd go early on him. But I don't mind him. Don't mind him.
Yeah, don't mind him at all. Moving on, and another pod option as the season progresses. We just need to include some more pods for people who might have a little bit of a inkling or a taste for them.
Yeah,
and we mentioned this guy last week, and I'm going to bring him up again because I think he sort of showed us a bit more.
He did.
And it is Nick Martin, mid forward eligible, 569.6K, averaging 94 with a break even of 66. And he has a 3-round average of 130.7 and a 5-round average of 119. That means that in terms of his 3-round average, he's the 3rd best scoring forward, and and is the 6th best on his 5-round average for forwards. So we need to consider, I guess, at this stage of the season, you don't necessarily need to trade in the literal top 6. You need to be looking at players that might finish in the top 6 from the point of the season where you trade them in. So you want the best 6. You want that player to be the best 6 from when you've brought them in.
Like Himmelberg last year, potentially, as an
exactly.
Example. Yeah.
Exactly. So you don't care what, like a Walsh, for instance, like probably he's unlikely to finish the season as a top 8 mid because he missed the first however many rounds, 4 or 5, whatever it was. And he just won't make the points back. But from that point of the season that you traded him in, he could be a top, 8, 10 mid. And that's what you need to consider with these guys. So that's why you got to look at him. And I think that's where you got to think about who you're trading in, because the points that they've scored means nothing now. Like it's irrelevant to you. It's only the points that they score when they're in your side that are important. At his price, though, I'm going to say probably look elsewhere. 569.6K. I think there's some other options that present as better value. But if you are looking for a pod, he's not bad. He's, I think, in like 4% of teams. And I think we spoke about it last week, and the drawback was that he had faced, since his uptick in scoring, his opposition were sort of depleted or weaker. But at 124 against the Dockers, with Parrish returning as well, I think helped him pass the eye test. So one to consider if you are a purveyor of pods.
Don't mind it. I wasn't a believer, I must admit, Liam, when you mentioned him last week, but I'm starting to become a little bit more of a believer now. A believer.
Believer.
Yeah, different from a believer. But how crazy is it though? Like, he's priced only 13K cheaper than Jordan Dawson, who's averaging a 117 in comparison to his 94.
Well, that's also, it shows you the value of Dawson, but it shows you the quirks of pricing and
3-round average and stuff. Yeah, 5-round averages, all that stuff. Yeah, crazy. But yeah, he's a pod to look at if you if that is I guess your kink. But let's move on to Darcy Cameron as a ruck forward. He's priced at 480.4K, averaging a 96.9 with a break-even of 78. And 2 of his last 3 scores are now 100 plus, and he's averaging a 101.3 in his last 3 games. He was in the section last week, of course. And again, if you're in need of a forward, Cameron offers a great option. His DPP adds some great benefit too, especially if you have Madden as your R3. So he does present as a bit of cover, season-long cover for the remainder
a good price
of the year. And a very good price, absolutely. Like, he's
gone
up in price a little bit since we spoke of him. Obviously heading into his buy. If you got him then, you would have got him 16.2K cheaper. Oh, sorry, you would have got him at 20K cheaper, round 13 when he went into his buy. So yeah, nonetheless, he still presents as a fair bit of value. So look at him very, very closely.
Yeah. Agreed. Now let's move on to a new section, and we're going to call these guys to consider. And these are ones that are potentially pods, potentially undervalued.
Risky options
in terms of price, a bit, but also much more risky options.
Probably role dependent, a lot of these guys, I reckon.
Yeah. So it's high risk, high reward, I want to say, with these guys. First one is Benny Keys, forward mid eligible, 462.7K, averaging 79.1 with a break even of 105. And he scored 119 on the weekend. And we got another week of evidence, I want to say, of how his scoring really is impacted by his role in the middle. He had 78% CBAs on the weekend, which was the second equal highest of the mids for the Crows. And we can see a clear correlation. His uptick in the CBAs and his uptick in scoring goes hand in hand. If you are looking for a discount option that still presents as a pod, Keys is in 4.5% of teams at the minute.
Wow.
And he has turned up in his last 4 games. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Yep. Pretty happy with that. Risk, obviously, and when we talk about high risk, high reward, he is high risk because he could be played as a tagger.
Yeah.
And he could be shoveled back into the forward.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was highly expecting that on the weekend against the Pies, and it didn't really happen. I mean, Dacos played a little bit in the middle as well, but didn't really play much of a lockdown role as what I was thinking. Wasn't a traditional like blanketing role. So I guess there is some positive signs there. Coaches have come out and said as well that he's going to be playing predominantly in the midfield from here on out. So I guess that is a good sign, but how much can you believe coaches? The one thing with Keys, I think that I don't like is the fact that he's got a pretty low ceiling. If you look at his scores last year, like he scored a few tons, fair enough, but not really much above the 125 plus mark. So there aren't any massive games with him, and that's purely because he's very, very Tom Mitchell-esque in a sense that doesn't really do much with the footy. Majority of them are handballs, that sort of stuff. So yeah, that kind of puts a bit of a ceiling on his scoring from week to week. But nonetheless, at that price point, and I was considering him, I must admit, going back, 4 weeks ago when he was 350, 360. But yeah, he still presents as a bit of value and a bit of a pod one at that. But another pod to look at, but a risky option, albeit, is Harry Himmelberg Thor as a defender forward. He's priced at 396.4K, averaging a 69.4 with a break-even of 96. So he does look to have a familiar role back in defense, much like he enjoyed his favorable scoring in last season. However, he has yet to enjoy any large ceiling scores to date, with scores of just 103, 88, and 72 in his previous 3 weeks, where he's played in this role as that sort of roaming defender. Sam Taylor did return to the side in their last game, and despite the Giants looking to have an overcrowded defense, he actually remained in that role, which is pleasing to see. But Haynes, another defender, went down with an ankle injury late in the game against Freo. They haven't really released any update as yet as to whether or not he will return this week, but that also solidifies the defensive role for Himmelberg. Comes at 102.6K discount on his starting price, so he does present as great value, even if he doesn't quite recapture the stellar, I guess it's 90 odds average that he had last year across the entire year. But again, where you touched on before, Liam, it was in his last, I think it was coming out of the bye. I think he was averaging, it would have been over 100 easily because he had massive scores there, but I think he had some really big ceiling scores there. I don't think that'll happen this year. Although it's going to be interesting because last year they were missing the likes of a Whitfield. So there was a bit more, I guess, slices of pie to go around. And Whitfield's missing this weekend because he's suspended. So it might be a bit of a ceiling game for him. Maybe, but it's against the D. So might be a bit of a tougher matchup. But he presents his value nonetheless. And he is a definite pod as well. I think he's only in 3% of teams, last check. 3% of teams. So yeah, if you're looking for a bit of a pod, and for both of these guys as well, Keys and Himmelberg, there's someone to look at if you don't quite have the bank to be able to reach someone like a Dawson in defense, or a Butters up in the forward line. You could opt for Keys. So yeah, one of these guys to really look at if you are on a bit of a budget.
Yep. Sounds good. Now let's move on to the bubble. We look some rookies. Probably not super relevant at this stage of the season, but if you do need some downgrade options that are, getting some games, these are the guys to look for. First up, we've got Jasper Fletcher, mid-eligible, 157.8K, averaging 58 with a break-even of minus 25. And he has scores of 53 and 63. So you can see there is a level consistency there in scoring for the Lions father-son selection. But with his higher price, you're not really freeing up as much cash, as if he were going for someone like Ryan Marek, who's 102.4K. And his cash gen is unlikely to be some, but really at this stage of the season, you're probably not too concerned about his cash gen. You're probably more looking for a player that's going to play and provide that cover. I'd probably give him a pass. His scoring potential looks better than Marek's at this stage, but job security is probably the key question, and it's kind of hard to know how the Lions are going to go with that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Totally agree. We've seen, the likes of Sharp go in and out of the side, Dev Robertson in and out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a little bit suspect. But yeah, he's shown enough promise thus far. But I think when the Whips are cracking later in the season, and they try to get their best 22 back on the park, he may fall by the wayside. But yeah, someone to look at nonetheless. And to round us out, Ryan Marek, as you mentioned, is that other rookie as a forward, priced at 102.4K, bottom priced, averaging a 32.5 with a break-even of -6. So the number one pick in the mid-season rookie draft is being starved, you could say, of scoring potential as he plays in no man's land, we'll call it, otherwise known as the forward line for the Eagles. And with no goals to his name to prop up his scoring in his second outing, it does really show that his scoring is really going to be dependent on his performance in front of the big sticks, unless he's pushed up the ground as playing more of a high half forward. As he frees up the maximum amount of cash by downgrading to him, he's not a bad pick, as he'll give you instant cash. And, you'd think he should have decent job security for the Eagles. And if not, he presents as a bit of a loophole option if you're looking for it later in the year. But I think if we're comparing it to Jai Cully, sorry, I was just thinking of his name then. I was just thinking of the dreadlock kid, but he got suspended, and I think he got injured late in the year as well. Soon after many people brought him in late in the year. But yeah, he might surprise. But yeah, the main thing I think with him is he's bottom priced, and there's potential there that he could provide cover. So a bit of a bonus.
Yes. Yep. Agreed. Now looking at rookies on the horizon, and there's really no one, shockingly, at this stage of the season. Yep. So yeah, just
here's what it is.
Keep that in mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
in terms of some cheap primos, Damon.
Yeah, to round us out, there's one really to keep an eye on. There's a couple that are coming up. There's Tookie Miller. There's Jezza, we spoke of him. He's not really a primo outright, but as we said, he could present as a bit of value. But one guy immediately is Callum Mills, and he returned on the weekend, was subbed out midway through the game, scored a 70-odd, which meant that his break-even stayed high and his price dropped, which was nice for us prospective owners. So he could actually drop another 30 to 40K or so this weekend with his break-even at a high of 167 again. So could be priced below 400K, even though he started, I think it was around about 600K. So an absolute bargain. And especially, again, for those people that are scrounging for or squeezing every penny that we spoke of the other week, it might be an option for those coaches as well. Even if you do have the excess cash to bring on Mills as a bit of a M9 sort of cover off the bench, season-long cover. Perfect.
Yep, like it a lot. Now, Damon, on to the talking point for this week. And it does come in the form of the pig. Pink Sweaty Pig himself. And I guess the question is, for those, what do we do? Yeah. So owners, I feel like the answer is pretty obvious. You're probably gonna have to hold him at this stage. You've kind of, it's a sunk cost now. You got to just keep holding him.
Yeah.
But for non-owners, people who either traded him out or haven't owned him at all. Yeah. Should we be bypassing him, or should we be looking to get him in still? Obviously, knowing now that he's going to miss this week as well.
Yeah, I must admit, I thought the talking point this week would have been whether or not Ben Keys actually shut his DAX on the weekend. If for those of you who saw the game or the photos online, we'll pop it up on the on YouTube here on this episode now. But it did look pretty suspect. I must admit, though, just with regards to that, because it was a funny moment. Rory Laird was on radio in South Australia, and he actually had to go on and clear up the fact that, no, he didn't shit his DAX. He apparently fell on the precipice or something that he said, like on the edge of the field. But if he was going to do that, it looked like he would have been riding the boundary line in order for that to happen. Like,
yeah.
Pretty sus, mate. Pretty sus. Anyway, I think he shut his DAX. But let's move on to this actual talking point here with Clary. And yeah, it's been pretty obvious. Like I've said, and I think you've mentioned it as well, that we were both keen to get him back into our sides after trading him out. But I think at this point in time, I'm probably going to redirect my funds elsewhere because I had to, unfortunately trade out Sicily as well. And at this point, it's kind of like weighing up: do I go for Sicily? Do I go for Clary? Because I don't have the cash to get both in, because they're both at very similar price points. And I think now I'm going to bypass Clary, just because if he does return, first and foremost, if he was to return, say next week, for example, he's got a high break even. Again, there's that suspect about his hammy. Now, the medicos, again, this is part of the issue. They haven't come out and confirmed that he's redone his hammy, but there is speculation. There's an article on Code Sports that mentions that, he may have done his hammy. They're kind of alluding to that. Again, just because purely they had follow-up scans and they said that, he wasn't ready to return, which is so, ambiguous about things and not clear-cut. So, of course, you're going to read between the lines there. So I think even if he does return, is there a chance that he redoes the hammy again? That's the other worry. And I think with limited trades at this point of the season, it's just too big of a risk to invest that sort of money, despite the fact he's an absolute gun and he's probably the number one player in SuperCoach at his peak. I think he's just too much of a risk. He might be a pod. Yes, that's probably an upside if people are trading him, apart from those people that have held him to date and want to hold him. But I think for those people that don't have him, I'd be looking elsewhere, and that's probably what I'm going to do. Unfortunately, as much as I wanted to really taste the pig juice yet again, I don't think it'll happen. I think we'll have to wait until next season. I don't know. Anything different for you, Liam?
No, but I'm trying to think about this from like a logical perspective, and like trying to actually do the math. So I'm looking at it. I'm saying I've still got Ashcroft in my side. He's averaging 79. Now, it depends on how long Clary is actually out for. So if we don't have any actual realistic timeline,
makes it hard.
That's the issue. So I think from that perspective, I'm kind of like, you probably need to bypass him because you're losing out on points. So if I would go Libba this week, Libba's averaging 118. Ashcroft is averaging 79. That's a gain this week of 39 points. Now, Oliver, on the other hand, is averaging 125, which is obviously, 7 points more than Libba a week if we go on average. I've also rounded these up because obviously they're not scoring 117.7 points. But yeah. So from that perspective, it kind of makes sense to wait for Oliver if I know that he's only waiting, if it's only a week, because, I'll make up the 39 points over the season, theoretically.
Yeah, when you get him in.
If we look at the mean across the year. Problem is, if Oliver misses this week and then he misses next week, it's then,
it's less weeks for him to make up the difference.
Points. Yeah. And then if he misses the week after, because we don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the key. If we can get, and we can't even trust what's coming out from them now. Like Simon Goodwin said after, was it the Carlton game? Like, he's got 10 days. He'll definitely play, I think was his quote. And he hasn't played since King's birthday. Like, sorry, he hasn't played since then. Like, it's been multiple weeks since then. Like,
it's a good point as well.
It really comes down to that, I think, at this stage.
Yeah. And if you're waiting for because I was hoping to bring him in last week. He was in I wrote out as you would have seen, for those people that tuned into my team talk videos. If you're listening to the podcast, check out our YouTube and you'll see that where I go into greater detail about my own team. But I wrote out a plan, pre-buys across detailing the trades that I was looking to do across the 4 bye weeks. And Clary was like the cherry on top of like my team. He was going to finish off my side. Obviously didn't account for Sicily being suspended, but I would have had him, brought in Clary, finished my side, had 3 trades remaining. And as it's turned out, it scuttled my plans. And, again, I had to bypass him on the weekend, obviously, because he didn't play. I brought in Petrarca. There's a little bit of a silver lining there because Petrarca, I think, is benefiting in terms of his scores without Clary being there. So I capitalized on that, brought him in. But again, I'm in a fortunate position because Briggs is kind of my ticket, or was my ticket to Clary. And he's still got another 60K to make over the next couple of weeks, potentially. But if the opposite was true with Briggs, if he was about to lose cash and I had to wait on Clary returning without knowing a definitive timeline, it's too much of a risk. Like, you might as well just bypass him. There's no use waiting. If you are in that situation where you're going to use a player as a bit of your, a bit of a ticket to Clary, but their break-even's high and they're on the cusp of potentially dropping in price, that's just not worth it. It's not worth waiting for. And again, there's risk if he does return. We don't know how fit he's going to be. Even though he's been training sparingly.
It's a hamstring.
it's a hamstring and it's going to be risky.
Yeah.
Soft tissue injuries are renowned for potential recurrence. It's later in the season as well. It's not as if it's at the start of the season. So you got to sort of weigh all these things up alongside each other. I think to me, with limited trades, I think it's just too much of a risk. And I'd much prefer to bring in someone like a Sicily who isn't injured, is suspended, and we know will return 100% in round 18. Unless he tackles someone off field and gets suspended again. Yeah, for me, I think that's part of the reason why I'm looking to bypass Clary. I've now like set my heart on that. I think last week I was 50-50. But now I think I'm kind of leaning more towards that.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. And I think that's where I'm going as well. Like if we look at him versus Sicily's going to come back in the side. It's not an issue of fitness with Sicily. He's going to come back in and kill it theoretically, or there's no concern. Whereas with Oliver, there's always going to be concern. You could see a Mills style thing where he gets subbed out.
Yep. Managed in game, yeah.
Managed. Like it could be anything. So, and that's going to limit his scoring. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
And I think with the weeks, like there's 16, 7. There's
it's 8 weeks to go. 24
9 weeks, 8 weeks, 8 weeks. Yeah, 8 weeks. Left. And he's not playing this week, so he's only 7 games after for him to potentially come back for.
Yeah.
That's the other thing you'd have to consider. It's a tough one. Could become a bit of a pod, based off that. But yeah, I think you've also got to bank on the points that you could get currently, and hopefully make it up before he comes back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just unfortunate for those people that own him because I'd almost be so you'd hate to do it, like trade him out. Yeah, but it's a rage trade at this point now where again, if there's no clarity, if I was an owner, I think the fact that there's been no clarity, no timeline still, I would be trading him out. But I think there's merit in holding still because you've held him this far. You've lost out 5-6 weeks now, like on potential scoring. It's just, and it's kind of at the point now where you held him, he's been out across the bye. So that's kind of negated most of those lost points where it's best 18. Even though he's still definitely lost points because he's a primo, but now it's like best 22. And like everyone's at the stage now where they're starting to finish off their teams and you're going to be kind of left behind in a sense, holding out hope that he's going to return. And you're going to have to field potentially a rookie or hold out hope for someone like a MJ to have a breakout game again, or Seamus Mitchell, which again, how much faith can you put in those guys? If you're swinging DPP and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think it is what it is. But yeah, that's pretty much it for a discussion point on all things Clary. Might revisit this maybe next week and touch on whether or not there's a timeline that's a bit more tangible.
Be interesting to also look back at it on the end of the season.
Yeah.
And kind of, I know hindsight's 2020, but just to see, just to see how it went. What was the prevailing logic? Did it work? Did it not work?
Yeah.
I don't think you can really use it going into other seasons because this is a very particular
unique
scenario.
Situation. Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to sort of consider.
Well, Liam, it is time now to steer the ship, as it were. But the question is, who steers that ship? We'll find out, won't we? Ian, I'm the captain now.
Toot toot.
Look at me. I'm the captain now.
So just a fun little anecdote. I was at the shops the other day and they had I hear in the distance this toot toot sound. And I was like, oh, where's this coming from? And it was a Thomas the Tank Engine, like train that was going around the shopping center, like
really?
Physically being driven around. And all I can say is there was one kid on it and this kid did not look like it wanted to be on this Thomas the Tank Engine. But I just thought, just brought to mind the podcast because I heard the toot 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 and it was perfect.
Yeah, it was. I'm the captain now.
Yeah, this kid was like, I am most certainly not the captain because I do not want to be here.
You should have just gone up to him and being like,
Yeah.
I'm the captain now.
Yeah, just scared, just punch the driver to get him off it and like
Push him
jump
off
on.
when it's going like 4 miles an hour, 4 kilometers an hour. Jump on, hijack the train. We don't endorse that, of course. But let's jump into I'm the Captain Now, of course, where we chat about what VC and C options you've got for the upcoming round of SuperCoach. As always, we scrounged through the data and found the best options for you to consider. Now, Liam, do you want to kick us off with our VC options?
Yes, let's start on Thursday night, 7:20 at the Gabba. We got Brisbane up against Richmond, and we've got Josh Dunkley first up. He's got an average of 94 in his last 4 games against the Tigers, with scores of 103, 134, 116, and 23. Now, if we do take away that injury-affected 23, his 3-game average becomes 117.67. Richmond also a giveaway. The second most points to inside mids, which is very helpful, especially when you've got a 3-round average of 135.7 and a 5-round average of 141.2. So Dunks could be in for a big one. But considering, Richmond give away the most points to inside mids, could also help this next guy, Damon.
Yes, absolutely. And that man is Lachie Neale, who has an average of 139 in his last 4 games against the Tigers with scores of 110, 107, 149, and 190. So it's going to be hard to split these two guys, but also just as hard to potentially maybe split this next guy who will delve into his average. Isn't so favorable, but his recent form line is very, very good, Liam.
Yes, and that is Timmy Taranto. He has an average of 82.25 in his last 4 against the Lions, with scores of 85, 87, 81, and 76. But he has a 3-round average of 125 and a 5-round average of 128, with 3 of his last 4 scores being 128 plus.
Gee whiz. Yep, he's one to look at, absolutely. Let's move on to the next game, and it is Sydney v Geelong on Friday at 7:50 p.m. at the SCG. And your boy, Errol Goulden has an average of 71.67. Sorry, I misread those numbers there. With scores of 47, 114, and 54 in his last 3 games against the Cats. So, yeah, I mean, there's that. And then there's also the fact that he scored 164 on the weekend against the Eagles. So, definitely someone to look at as a bit of maybe a pot option. VC might give you a bit of a leg up, maybe.
And I don't know if you like those sort of like coincidence. The last time he had a ceiling score of 156, the next week he also scored 156. So maybe he goes 164 again. We never know.
That was right. That's back in round 8 and 9 against the Pies and Freo. 156 back to back. Ooh,
one of those teams. Oh my god! One of those teams was also a Western Australian team, and the other one's a Victorian team.
That's very true. That is.
One was at the SCG, and the other one was at the MCG, which I know it's not. One was at. Oh no, they're both at the SCG. Oh damn! Come on.
I thought you were going to say, and they've both got G in the acronym. SCG and MC. Oh, they both got a CG in SCG and MCG.
They're both at cricket grounds.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like that's where I was hoping he was playing at a Vic ground, but no.
That would have been good.
Come on.
It's almost like numerology or the it's trends really. It's amazing.
Come on, 164. Come on, Errol. Anyway, moving on to the next guy, and he's Tom Stewart. He has an average of 108.25 in his last 4 against the Swatties, with scores of 111, 103, 114, and 105. And that 111 came earlier this season.
Very nice. Well, the next game is the Crows up against North Melbourne on Saturday at 1:45 p.m. at Adelaide Oval. And wow, that's all I can say about this game. Jordan Dawson. This is just juice galore. This is like opening up a can of juice and just spraying it everywhere. Just losing your shit when you see this, because Jordan Dawson, he has got an average of 122.75 in his last 4 games against North, with scores of 134, 145, and 99, and 113. But Liam, he's actually eclipsed by the next guy.
Yeah, somehow. Rory Laird has an average of 126.5 in his last 4 games against North, with scores of 156, 97, 104, and 149. There's more juice in this game than a boost juice.
Is there enough pulp though? That's the question. Which one's got more pulp?
Which one's got more pulp? Probably Probably Laird just.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he would have been my captaincy option on the weekend if I didn't lock in the big tractor. But yeah, geez, you can't go too wrong. If they can deliver a nice captaincy score in line with those averages there, you'd be happy enough, that's for sure.
Yes.
But the next game is the Western Bulldogs up against Freo on Saturday at 1:45 p.m. at Marvel Stadium, of course. The Bont. He's got an average of 134.5 in his last 4 games against the Dockers with scores of 182, 100, 149, and 107. So a bit of a mixed bag there. But that 182, that came earlier this year when they played at Optus Stadium. So he's in fine fiddle is the Bont.
Yes, he is. Another option for you, Tim English. He's got an average of 107.25 in his last 4 against a Freo with scores of 131, 86, 69, and 143.
That was up against Darcy as well, that game previously. So another juicy option. Geez, there's options galore here. It's going to be a very, very hard week to pick, I reckon. Next up, we have Andy Brayshaw, has an average of 94.75 in his last 4 games against the Dogs with scores of 98, 93, 120 and 77. But must say that the Dogs, they give away the least points to opposition inside mids, which also affects this next guy, his teammate, Liam.
Yes, and that is Caleb Sarong, who has an average of 109.75 in his last 4 against the Doggies with scores of 130, 103, 84, and 122. And it should be noted that 130 came earlier in the season as well.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to the next game, and it is Gold Coast up against the Pies on Saturday at 4:35 p.m. at HBS Stadium.
Heritage Bank Stadium.
That's what they call it. Yeah, you always come through the goods with that. I have no idea. I can't remember the name of it.
I've never heard of Heritage Bank.
No.
Like the sponsorship's not working because it's never made me want to search it.
Nick Dacos, the standard option in this game. He's got an average of 109 in his 2 games against the Suns with scores of 75 and 143, of course, coming off that 132 juicy game against the Crows.
Yes. Now let's move on to some captaincy options. So these are later in the round. So, I mean, you could always captain someone earlier if you want, but these are just sort of more prime options later in the round. Probably more so not VC options is what we're going with here. First up, we've got Essendon versus Port Adelaide, Saturday at 7:25 p.m. at Marvel Stadium. No, it is at the MCG. Sorry. Zach Merritt, averaging 100 in his last 4 games against the Power with scores of 106, 130, 73, and 91. But the Power are one of the hardest teams for opposition inside mids to score against. And it's going to be a tough one for him, I think.
Yep.
Potentially.
Yes, well, let's look on the other side of the field, and Zachary Butters. He averages 124.5 in his last 4 games against the Dons with scores of 125, 104, 106, and 163. So that nice little recent score there, 125, and nice little average as well. But it has been boosted, of course, with that 163. Skewed a smidge, but he's due. I think he's due. He's due.
Yeah, so do I.
He's Butters. Because he's had a couple of a few down games, and he's due for a bounce back. Very much.
I think some wet weather as well potentially on the weekend.
Gonna love a tackle, love a hug just to keep warm.
Yep. Next up, we've also got his teammate Connor Rosie, averaging 95.25 in his last 4 against the Dons with scores of 104, 106, 76, and 95. Just a bit of a pod option, for want of a better term. Just less likely to be picked, I'd say.
Fair enough. Well, let's move on to the next game, and it is Hawthorn up against Carlton on Sunday at 1:10 p.m. at the MCG. And Sammy Walsh, who we spoke of earlier, as a bit of a discount option. He averages 92.75 in his last 4 games against the Hawks with scores of 124, 116, 52, and 79. And the Hawks, though, are the 4th easiest side for inside mids to score against. So, like we mentioned, this could be the week where he might hit his ceiling. It might be a ceiling game for a Walshy, and I'm hoping so. And I'm sure you are likewise, Liam.
Yes.
As owners.
Yes, I am. Another guy in that same game, Sam Doherty, has an average of 113.25 in his last four against the Hawks with scores of 122, 96, 91, and 144. The Hawks also give away the third most points to attacking defenders, so Dockers could be in for a decent score.
Yep, like it. Next up, we have Melbourne up against the Giants on Sunday at 3:20 p.m. at TAO Stadium. And First up, we have the tractor, Christian Petrarca, has an average of 109 in his last four games against the Giants with scores of 116, 83, 123, and 114. And GWS are actually the third hardest team to score against for mids. So a nice, interesting stat there.
Yes. And on the other side of the field, we have Tom Green, and he has an average of 99 in his last four against the Ds with scores of 115, 64, 98, and 119. But I guess it should be noted, and I can't remember if the trend has still continued, but Melbourne has been giving away quite a lot of points to midfielders in recent weeks. So Tom Green could be on a bit of could have a bit of an option as to go on a bit of a tear this week.
Yep, I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. Next up, we have, or round us out, the game between the Eagles and St Kilda, and this could be an absolute shit show again. Unfortunately for the Eagles, but Rowan Marshall, he's got an average of 76.5 in his last four games against the Eagles with scores of 88, 50, 76, and 92. But you can probably just throw that all out the window because West Coast give away the second most points to opposition ruckman. And he has the ability to rack up fair few marks and possessions around the ground. And if, recent form is to go by with those teams against the Eagles, St Kilda and all of their players are in for a bit of a day out. So he is someone to look at just purely based off matchup here.
Yes. And his teammate, Jack Sinclair, he's got an average of 91.25 in his last four against the Eagles with scores of 117, 66, 96, and 86. Now, there could be some exploitation of matchup here to consider, but depends on his positioning. West Coast give away the most points to mids, but aren't as easy for attacking defenders to score in. So it could be a bit of a risky play based off that. Also, plays in the last game of the round. We don't like that.
No.
And I have become acutely aware of it ever since you mentioned it.
It's super risky, very, very risky. He had 68% CBAs on the weekend, which was his most all season, which I thought with Windhager coming in, who only had 36%, might be the opposite, might be less time, but he actually had a really good game to his credit. That's the first time that he's actually scored well when he's had bulk CBAs. So who knows? If he stays in that role, he could be in for an absolute super game. But another sort of pot option, which we won't go into detail with, Jack Steele, but can you trust him?
No.
But yeah, no. Let's just leave it at that. Well, let's jump into our little captaincy head-to-head. And Liam, I think you've got the first choice this time around.
I do.
But before we delve into that, let's have a look at how we fared last round. So I ended up locking in Laird, who scored a 125, and you went for Oliver into Dunks. And of course, Oliver didn't play, so Dunks was your I guess, VC in this case, and scored a 122. So only 3 points difference. Was very, very, very close. 8 wins to me and 6 to you, Liam. But who are you? What's tickling your fancy this week?
I am scrolling up and down
Feverishly.
Yes, I really don't know who to pick.
Too many.
I am going to go Jordan Dawson.
That's very strategic by you.
Yeah, because I know you can't go Laird.
Yep, because I can't go Laird. That's. I'll tip my cap to that. You've thought about that. Very good. Very, very good. Well, it means because he would have been the one that I went for.
Yeah.
And Dawson would have been by extension.
What's the bet that I screw myself over because you're going to pick someone else who
goes better and then Laird
and Laird will outscore him. Anyway, got to play the game sometimes.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. I know. I appreciate that. It's about time we did that because we don't really look ahead.
We really don't think
this the next week, all that sort of stuff, because I flagged that last week when I chose Laird and I was like, oh, who are they playing next week? Then I was like, oh, stuff it, like they're playing north. But
Yeah.
okay.
I really think that the listeners need to realize that we do not script this part at all.
No,
We
literally, it's on the
really
fly.
yeah.
It is organic as it can get. Even though we've done the research going through, and
We don't
we're
pick
obviously
anyone, yeah.
running through. We don't pick anyone, but Jesus is hard. Without those two,
My suggestion, if you want to take it, would be Lockie Neal
I'm actually choosing between him and
or Dunks.
Dunkley.
Yeah.
Coin flip. I'm gonna go for Neil. I'll go for Neil.
Yeah, I like
Lock
it.
him in. I reckon Neil. He'll get off the chain. He's due.
He's
He's
due.
Stewie. He's Stewie. Well,
Perfect.
that's it.
That's
Very,
it.
very nice. Well, let's jump into the next segment, Liam, and it is
I got to know.
Hey, I got to know.
I was waiting for you to kick it off, so I was like waiting patiently. I wanted to have that harmony.
Yeah.
I think
we're not going a cappella again.
maybe we'll try it. We're still gonna find time. Maybe when you're eating your pie, we'll do the acapella. And then as the beads of sweat are forming on your head and you're as red as a tomato, it might bring out the higher pitches. Or the lower tones, who knows? But in I Got to Know, we throw it open to you, the good folk of the SuperCoach Edge community, where we answer your burning questions. And we've had a few sent through, Liam. And do you want to kick us off with the first one?
Yes, first question comes in from Brad Dorr at BradDorr4 on Twitter. And his question is best defender option out of Doc. So he's got a 2-for-1 here, actually. Best defender option out of Doherty, Houston, Ridley, and Ryan. And then also the best mid option out of Sarong, Brayshaw, Anderson, and McRae. So in terms of those best defenders, I'm going to rank them. Ryan 1.
Oh, okay.
Purely because he's currently the third best midfield defender. Like I kind of have to rely on that. 2, I'm going to go Doherty. I'm worried about Ridley. So BZT has gone down with injury. I'm a little bit worried that Ridley's role is going to change slightly now. It might not. He scored well on the weekend, but we could see an issue there. Dockers and Ridley are probably even for me, and then Houston probably comes in 4th. Houston probably also a bit of a pod, and that's my concern. It could hurt you a little bit. It's not like someone who is. I'm just gonna have a quick look at Houston's scoring because
he's not like a reliable runs on the board type operator.
Yeah, like what he had a big game on. Not last week, the week before, 146, and then he has a 47 the week before. It's too much variability. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of his 14 games below 100. That's a concern for me.
Yeah. He's actually, to his credit, he scored well. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But at this point of the season, I always like to opt for guys that have the runs on the board historically. And as you mentioned there with Houston, he's only in 2% of teams. Yes, it's a good pod because it may help give you a bit of a leg up. But in saying that, you kind of need to bank on them outscoring those higher owned players, where I think I like to sort of opt for the safety, again, depending on where you're at in terms of overall ranking and if you're going for head-to-head, league matchups, cash leagues, all that sort of stuff. But even then, I think I'd prefer to go for the tried and tested, equivalent price point anyway, where I think he's probably still good value is Doherty.
Yeah.
I really like him. He still was able to score quite well across the journey, despite the fact Carlton's been performing like shit week in, week out. His lowest game was 77, which is pretty much every single Carlton player. I'd be surprised if many actually scored above the ton that game because they just gave up. But aside from that, if you scrub that, he scored a 111 on the weekend, 96, 124, 135, 94, 111, and 106 in the time that he's been back from his
the difference.
Injury. So I like that security that he provides there. His role is really
still
good.
Still in 7% of teams.
Yeah, exactly. He's still
gives you
a
bit of
best
of everything. Yeah.
Now that I'm actually talking through him, because I've got the coin to bring him in potentially off the back of Weddle. So it's like, do I go for Doc or do I go for Sicily?
Doherty's one I'm considering as well with Dawson, like chuck Dawson into the midfield
Yeah,
and have Doherty back. But I could also go Libba. I don't know.
yeah.
Oh,
It's hard, isn't it?
yeah.
But yeah, I think I'd rank them in terms of, for me, I would go for Doherty.
Yeah.
I'd go for, again, Ridley. If you said that if his role was sound, I'd probably be going for him ahead of Ryan. And then Houston round us out.
Yeah.
And then in terms of best mid option out of Sarong, Brayshaw, Anderson, and McRae, again, I wouldn't be opting personally for any of these guys. But I think,
McRae's probably the one that I like most just because he's a DPP.
yeah, it's very, very true. Yep. Anderson's probably down the list.
Yeah.
You look at his scoreline, was it from yesterday as we record this on the Sunday? He actually got a lot of junk points. He kicked 2 late goals, didn't really count for much. Win was already in the bag against the Hawks, and he's fallen off the wagon since he had the hot run of form. So I'd probably rank him last, especially from a value perspective. McRae, I don't mind. I'd probably personally go Brayshaw. Sarong I'm still worried about with that ankle. So maybe Brayshaw, Sarong and McRae is even 2, and then Anderson to round them out.
So what was your order?
So I'd go Brayshaw first up. Then I'd go Sarong and McRae sort of in line with each other.
Yeah.
And then Anderson.
Yeah, cool. I'd probably go Sarong first. I think with Darcy back in the side, he seems to be benefiting. I don't like Brayshaw. I don't know what it is. I've just never liked him as a super coach option. Even
he's got
last
a
year.
bit of variability in his scoring.
Yeah.
Actually, you're probably right. I think if Sarong didn't have that ankle injury, I don't know how fit he is at the moment. I'm presuming he's almost at full fitness, but he's not playing the same minutes that he was previous to the previous 2 weeks. He's actually had less than 100 minutes in the game, where every single other week, bar round 1, he's maxed that out. But if you didn't have that ankle, that suspect ankle, I would have Sarong number 1, Brayshaw and McRae equal 2, and then Anderson rounded out.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, let's move on to the next question, and it is SuperCoach DPW at SuperCoach DPW. And he says, to kill the bench cover to finish the team, wait it out for a little longer or take a Himmelberg, Mills, or Keys type. So what's he saying there? What is trading out someone that's on the bench in order to bring in Himmelberg, Mills, and Keys type? Or I think he might be suggesting potentially waiting on his cash cows to make more cash in order to afford a better player down the line. Or do you bring in someone?
Yeah.
Wait it out for a little longer. Yeah. Or go for someone now, like a Himmelberg, Mills, or Keys type. Again, depends how many.
I think it depends on your side.
Yeah. What it looks like structurally, and also how many other players you need to upgrade. If this is your sort of last upgrade, maybe you wait it out if you can. And it depends if you can loot players off the bench as well, and how strong your bench cover is. Like if you've got a Seamus Mitchell, for example, who I would be happy, which I'm going to probably do, and loop his score off the bench.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind doing that. Otherwise, I don't mind Mills either. I'm a big fan of Mills. Oh, no, that's 50-50. We can't really give a definitive answer, I don't think, because we don't know what your team looks like. Maybe message us on Twitter, SuperCoach DPW, and we'll give a look at your team and let you know a more definitive answer there. Hard to say. And especially like who you're trading out as well. That's the other factor to think about. But Liam, I'll read out this question here and throw it across to you. So it's TK Mac, regular consumer of our content. So thanks, as always, TK Mac, which is at Taylor M 587-31221. Thoughts on trading out Marshall to bring in Libba, and in brackets move Weddle to the bench, and running Briggs R2 or play Marshall and Weddle for 2 more weeks till Briggs is around the 450 mark, and trade and then bring in Libba, keeping Marshall R2. So should he what's the saying? cut off his nose to spite his face. He's pretty much, if that works, because he's pretty much like he'd be cutting Marshall in order to afford Libba now, or does he wait for Briggs to mature in price to then afford Libba and also keep Marshall? I'm a big fan of, I think the sorry to jump in here, but I'm a big fan of that later. Again, reaching for the top. But Briggs has been performing pretty well, I must admit.
Yeah.
So it would afford you more points now by bringing Libba sooner rather than later. But also, I think you probably should look at it in terms of the points lost and potential points gained by if you bring Libba in now, as opposed to later.
Yeah.
Because it means that you'd have to play Weddle, I think, by the looks of what he's saying there.
So the issue that I see, Marshall has a rougher, I want to say, run home. Like he plays West Coast, which is good next round, but then plays Melbourne, who's historically hard to score against, Gold Coast, who's historically hard to score against, North Melbourne, who's historically hard to score against, Hawthorn, who's historically hard to score against for Rucks, Carlton, who's historically hard to score against for Rucks, Richmond is better, Geelong better, and then Brisbane to round out the season, who is harder to score against as a ruckman. So not necessarily a great run. I'm now just having a quick look at Briggs. And he plays Melbourne this round, so tough round. Hawthorn tough. Adelaide easier. Gold Coast hard. Western Bulldogs surprisingly easier.
Yeah. Okay.
Sydney easy. Port easier. Essendon, depending on who plays, but harder, and then Carlton harder. So
yeah, maybe I'm leaning more towards like off the back of that, because I was actually, if I was in that situation with if Marshall wasn't on the bye, that the same, sorry, if Briggs wasn't on the bye on the weekend and Marshall was, I would have traded out Marshall, I think, and done a similar move and upgraded, say, a Weddle or another player to a definitive primo. So I actually don't mind Briggs as an R2. You've got Briggs as R2, don't you?
I've got Briggs as R2. I do feel like I'm living precariously with Flynn just sort of in the wings constantly. Yeah. And every team sheet, I'm like, oh no, is Flynn in? Briggs is going too well though, almost. Like it's almost like Briggs is performing. You don't want to play around with that.
They don't need Flynn.
No. So I have Marshall as my R1 and Briggs as my R2. I initially was actually going to say no, don't trade Marshall, but kind of pro it now. I think Marshall's run home is tougher than Briggs's is.
Yeah,
and I think like that your points that you're going to gain now is probably higher with Libba and Briggs in the team over Marshall.
Over Marshall and Weddle. Yeah. Like Libba's going to score. I mean, that's the main tipping point really, is that I think Briggs and Marshall will probably score similarly, I reckon. So the difference, I reckon, and just to simplify it, is comparing the points difference between Libba and Weddle. Yeah. So I think the points gained between, Libba and a Weddle. Weddle's averaging a 67.8. And Libba is he's averaging
about 117, 118.
117. Yeah, wow. So that's 50 points more average straight up. So that's a lot of points difference there if averages are maintained. So I'm a big fan of doing that. I think now the 50 points extra every single week, especially if you're going for overall, 100%. But also in your head-to-head, if you're struggling to make finals and you need wins on the board, this is definitely going to help you. He's a 9% of teams, so a relative pod in comparison to the other primos, the other big name primos. So again, that's another benefit. So yeah, I'm probably more a fan of bringing in Libba now at the expense of Marshall, and then putting Weddle to the bench.
And Briggs as your R2 could be a bit of a pod as well. Like, I know he's obviously owned by 17% of teams, but I'd say a lot of that is in R3.
Yep.
with English and Marshall as your R1 and R2. So it could end up being a bit of a pod as well with Briggs, which could help you out in your leagues.
Very, very well summarized there. Well, let's move on, and hopefully that's helped all of you guys there. And SuperCoach DPW, as you said, just hit us up on Twitter, mate, and we'll be happy to help you out. But let's, before I guess we wrap things up, let's run through our SuperCoach Edge Cup group results after round 15.
Yes, our SuperCoach Edge Cup group public group leader is new one. Got a new clubhouse leader, and it is Adam with his team All Too Hard. He has a round score of 2,241 and an overall rank of 44th and a total score of 33,660. Very nice there. And the top scorer for the round was Amy with their team Chocolate Queen. They had a round score of 2,318 and a round rank of 96th. Very, very nice.
Chocolate Coin. That reminds me, it's just a throwback to when I was younger and you used to go to the supermarket or whatever, and you can get the bag of like the chocolate in the the foil wrapper coins. Classic. Very good. And Amy, apologies if this is incorrect, but I assume it is of the female variety. So always good to see the other, the fairer sex, as they call them. Do they call them that? We will. But it's good to see them taking out the top score for the round as well, showing us, man, how it's done. But let's move on to the Patreon's exclusive group. Yes. And the leader is none other than T Prostitutes Inc., aka Jonas Goat, a regular consumer of our content and good fellow commenter on YouTube as well. Check out his work because he loves a few of the SuperCoach, but it's Simpsons tied in with SuperCoach puns. So very, very nice to have him as a listener and viewer. But his overall score is 33,478, round score of 2,061, and his overall rank is 149th. Very, very nice there by you, Jonas. And the top scorer was Matthew, Texas Legends, with a score of 2,056.
Yes, and in terms of our Patreon exclusive Cash League, SuperCoach Edge Cash League, the results looked something like this. We had Popball FC Dylan. He defeated Tankers, Peter with his team Tankers, 1869 to 1550. I had a win over Carps Crushers, 1861 to 1759. And when we look at the ladder, there has been some absolute carnage. Brett with his team, the Sharpshooters, 1852, defeated Scott Arthur, Black on White, 1818, close one. And Matthew, Ton 618, who scored 1893, was defeated by yourself, Damon, DJ Traderlot, 1921. It was a close matchup, that one.
It was a very close matchup. We're talking about it.
I was watching that. Yeah, I was actually watching that. I was quite interested in it because it was looking like he was potentially going to get the win over you.
Yeah, with 15 players, I think it was. So it would have been a fair effort. One less player virtually compared to me. So it would have been a fair effort. But Humphrey B. Bear, he was the one that silenced him.
Yeah. I think I even made that point in the I said Humphrey, it's all going to come down to Humphrey because you had, I can't remember who you had.
Weddle and Seamus. Yeah.
And I thought you would, just depend on that.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the ladder, Damon.
Yes, the ladder. So as you mentioned, there's been a fair bit of movement here. A fair few players dropping down a spot, and one that's jumped up quite a few spots, Liam. Familiar name. But let's start it off from the top. And I have reclaimed top spot.
It is you.
Ever so narrowly. I moved up the one spot over the Sharpshooters.
Big spot, though.
So yes, big spot. So thank you, Emper, who I played, of course, who gave me that win because I'm now ahead on points by 13 points, as a matter of fact, in terms of points scored, because we're both, Sharpshooters and I, are on 11 wins. Next up, in third spot on 6 wins. So a bit of difference between the top two to the third spot. But again, we flagged this last week.
Just the 5 wins.
But we flagged this last week in terms of the potential moves of yourself, Liam, because you've gone into the third spot, Church of Parish, with 6 wins, and you jumped up from, you were in 6th spot, you were languishing. But we said a few results had to go your way. I had to beat Emper, and there had to be a few other losses and wins and whatnot, and they fell in your favor, Liam. So you jumped up to third spot there. Absolutely. Everything came up Church of Parish. And then in fourth spot is Emperor Ton 618 Matthew. He has dropped down a spot. So you've taken his spot virtually. He's behind on points differential by 90, 80, 86 points. Cups Crushers in fifth spot. Again, 6 wins behind a differential. In sixth spot, Black on White Scott Arthur. Again, on 6 wins behind in points differential.
Yeah.
Very, very tight between third spot and sixth spot. There's actually 300 odd points or thereabouts difference. And then in seventh spot, Popperball FC Dylan with the 5 wins. And then Tankers rounding us out, Peter in eighth spot behind in points differential. Liam, that's very, very, very exciting. So
It is. Remember, I was on the bottom of the ladder that whole time.
you were
And I was
holding the ladder.
like-
You're so humble, so noble.
I was, and I was like,
go
nah,
ahead, I'll
just
catch up.
climbing over everybody else and just like get
Stepping
down.
on people's heads. Stepping on people's heads. You were so humble to begin with, holding up the ladder. Now you're stepping on people's faces, climbing over them, kicking their hands to try and fall off the ladder. But yeah, now it's the noble act of Peter to our
Yes.
combined father-in-law to prop us up. So thank you, Pete.
I think I'm going to call it
Yes.
that you and sharpshooters. It's what's going to happen here. We're going to have a really good battle for first and second.
Yes,
Like who's going to finish in first, and then it's going to be who finishes in third and fourth is going to be the other battle, because there's no way. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
that's
5 rounds. I don't know what our final structure is, but I'm assuming that I can't win 5 in a row, or no one could win 5 in a row and catch up to you guys.
Yeah, no, I think it's round 20, I think, is the last round before finals. And there's 4 rounds of finals.
Yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. So I feel like yeah, we're going to see some nice movement in the middle, and it'll be a nice little battle between you and sharpshooters at the top.
Well, who knows? There could be a bit of a dark horse, and maybe that person is you, Liam, because you've made your run, you've timed it to perfection. But that brings us to the end of the show. But before we go, where can our listeners find us across our socials?
Yes, on YouTube, if you search SuperCoach Edge, don't forget to like and subscribe, because you're gonna want to watch me eating a very hot pie, apparently.
Yeah, if people want it, only if they want it. Otherwise, we're not going to go to the trouble of filming it. I want to see it, Liam. And
I'm happy to film it.
Well, you know what? Let's just film it, and then
Too bad. If you don't want to watch it, too bad.
that's
You
fine.
have to.
That's
It's
fine.
here.
Yeah, it's
Not,
here.
no,
It's here.
not
Exactly right.
even. It's fine. You don't have to. You have to.
Or maybe if people don't want it, you can just start your own OnlyFans and you can put it
Yeah,
up there,
just
and people
eating.
can just pay for the ASMR type content of it.
I'll go talk to, what's their name? What did I say? Gaffney Pies, and I'll say
If that's it.
there's some weirdos out there that
Yeah.
want to hear me eat your pies. We can make some money
Exactly.
here.
We can make some good money, and people that want to see you like step into the pies barefoot and all that sort of stuff, like, and then have a microphone there with ASMR, so you get the best of both worlds.
The nice.
But anyway, after that,
Anyway.
if you want to watch that, then comment down below on YouTube and let us know through Twitter. Hit us up.
Yes. Moving on Twitter, you can reach us at supercoach_edge, Damon at DamonJ88, and tell him if you want to hear that AMSR. Direct them directly at his DMs. And
Directly yours. In fact, I don't know what it's called, but I've seen some of the girls on Twitter. They've got some, I don't know what the link is called, but it's like, check out my bio. There's like a link in there, and you can send me money to pay for coffees and stuff, and lingerie and all that sort of stuff. So maybe we'll set up that. Maybe as guys, we can start breaking the barriers, and we can, the gender stereotypes, and we too can revel in
get coffees.
free money.
You can reach me at Liam Evans _95, and on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, search SuperCoach Edge, and you'll find us there.
Very nice. Well, as always, if you love the content we provide, as you mentioned, Liam, make sure to let us know by subscribing to our YouTube channel and help us in our pursuit of hitting 1K by the end of the season. I think at the rate at the moment, we might fall short by about 50 subscribers that we're going. So we need the rate to pick up. We're getting the whip out, and we're whipping furiously. Even if it takes, you know what? if we need to upload like these sort of videos that we were just talking about, Liam, in order to get subscribers to,
I was
tap
literally
into
just about to say that.
to tap into the ASMR community, then we'll do it. We'll do it. Let us know. We won't degrade ourselves too badly, but you know, we'll do what it takes. Do what it takes. But anyway, that's it for another episode. Let's shut it off before we delve into just the depths of despair. But thanks as always for tuning in. Hopefully you survived coming out of the buys, but thankfully no more buys to worry about. So if you struggled, who cares? It's behind us now. So all the best for the round ahead, and we'll catch you same times, same place. We'll see you then.
See you guys.